Well, a disgraced prominent Brazilian politician likened to the fictional corrupt US politician Frank Underwood in the TV series House of Cards has used a New Zealand company as part of a complex arrangement to hide his wealth in secret bank accounts. Eduardo Cunha, the suspended Speaker of Brazil's lower house of Congress, has a Swiss account set up by PVCI New Zealand Trust through a Singaporean shelf company. PVCI is run by people who feature prominently in the Panama Papers, including two foreign trust providers in New Zealand. One of those is Cone Marshall, who administered a trust for the family of a former Kazakhstan Prime Minister convicted of corruption, which hid their $15 million home in the exclusive London district of Belgravia. Our economics correspondent Patrick O'Meara joins us now. Kia ora.
Hi, Mihi.
Kia ora. Who is Eduardo Cunha?
Look, a very big hitter in Brazilian politics. He's a conservative evangelist, a radio host. He's a member of Brazil's biggest party. That's the Brazilian Democratic Movement Party. Now, in August 2015, prosecutors in what's called the car wash corruption scandal accused him of taking $5 million in bribes in relation to Petrobras contracts and hiding the money in secret bank accounts in Switzerland. Now, despite the seriousness of these allegations, he continued to operate as the Speaker of the lower house of Congress, and he also actually led the impeachment charge against the now suspended Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff. However, look, he was finally stripped of that position just earlier this month. They also included obstruction charges against him, mainly for intimidating members of the ethics committee that was trying to investigate him. So, look, all in all, a pretty tough nut. He's not well liked by the Brazilian public. A recent poll there had people there saying that 77% of them wanted him out and stripped of his mandate, and that compared with just 67% for the President Dilma Rousseff. But look, what he does have is he has significant political clout inside the Parliament. There's a lot of politicians who owe him favours, and effectively analysts think that he's unlikely to be stripped of his position.
It is a bit like a movie script there. What is the New Zealand link to the corruption charges he's facing?
Well, PVCI is a company that was set up in July 2008 by a Panamanian company of the same name. Now, the first thing it did was set up a shell company in Singapore called Netherton Investments, and 2 months later, that company set up a bank account in Switzerland for Cunha. Now, the company itself is actually registered at Asia City Trust in New Zealand, which was mentioned in the Panama Papers, and two of its directors were directors for hire that were used by Mossack Fonseca, and that was also highlighted in the Panama Papers. Now, Asia City itself was then replaced by Cone Marshall in 2014. Its principal, Jeff Cone, became a director of PVCI in November 2015. Now, in the meantime, Swiss authorities had notified Brazil's government that, in fact, they had found these Swiss bank accounts which were linked back to PVCI through Netherton, and that reportedly held $2.4 million for Mr. Cunha.
What about Cone Marshall? Have they had anything to say?
Yes, they have. Now, we emailed Jeff Marshall about this and their involvement in hiding funds for Mr. Cunha. Look, his reply was fair cop. Once we found out, they terminated the case and looking to wind up the company. Now, he said that decision was taken in January this year, so he's only director for a couple of months before they made this decision. He resigned as a director in April. And the company's now office put out a notice saying it was going to wind it up just last month, and it should be struck off next month in June. Now, we talked to the Asia City, or we tried to contact Asia City about their involvement. They didn't have anything to say. The Brazilian embassy, they didn't reply to our emails about whether they were chasing up PVCI here in New Zealand. The company's office themselves say that they haven't been contacted by any outside authorities. And if we could just take you back to what Jane was saying earlier today, just about the Prime Minister's moves towards tightening up these rules around this. Look, there's definitely now a greater sense of urgency. We've now had this case, the Kazakhstan case that we heard earlier this morning, obviously the Malta case, if you remember, that was the New Zealand's involvement in that back when these papers were first released in April. So Mr Key seems to have come a long way from his earlier assessment that there was no problem.
Patrick O'Mara, our economics correspondent, thank you for your work.